I would now like to introduce Malcolm Lerider, who serves as Senior R&D Manager at Neo Smart Economy. As a double master's degree holder, he has long been engaged with software development and software project management, and he once worked for world-renowned enterprises such as Accenture and WebPower as a Java software engineer. Please join me in welcoming him.
Thank you. How is the sound? Can everybody hear me? I would like to first thank the organizers for arranging this event here today. And also thank you to everybody who went to bed early yesterday and managed to come here to this first presentation today. So my name is Malcolm Lerider. I work at Neo Global Development in Shanghai. So I sit together with the software developers and marketing team and Neo Global Capital in the northern part of Shanghai city. I would like to present today about Neo Smart Economy and how Neo is different from other blockchain platforms and smart contract platforms. So how many of you in here know about Neo? Let's just see with a raise of hands. So it's not that many. And the very, very simple explanation of what you can do with Neo is in basically that anything you can do on Ethereum, you can do on Neo as well. But you can, of course, do it much better on Neo. But jokes aside, there are several technologies out there. And when you are building a software, you should always choose the technology that is best suited for your use case. So that's also what this presentation here is about. So I want to present to you the differences between Neo and other smart contract platforms so that all the developers in here, all the business managers and founders can choose the technology that is best suited for their needs. So I've been working at Neo now for about 1.5 years. I started out in the community as many other of the employees in Neo Global Development. I joined the team in Shanghai officially in September, August last year. I work with the R&D team, so I help manage the R&D team in Shanghai and also the R&D that is being done all over the world. So Neo is an open source project. So it's available on GitHub. Anybody can contribute to the code. Anybody can download it and run their own private net. And there are also community groups in Europe, in United States, in China, in Japan, in Brazil. And they're all doing their own research on how to improve the Neo blockchain. And we have about 100 to 200 open source developers. And I think about 10 to 20 of them are now working on Neo blockchain full-time as community contributors. So when to start discussing decentralized applications, I think it's good to first have a little brief walk back through the development of blockchain technology and what we use it for. So the first generation of blockchain technology is often, well, you can say it's Bitcoin, built as a peer-to-peer cash system. And the consensus algorithm for that is proof of work. How many here are familiar with consensus algorithms? Let's see. That's quite a lot of you, so that's good. I'll not go too much into details of that. And then a very smart guy called Vitalik Buterin, he came up with the idea that you could actually build Turing-complete applications called smart contracts using the same technology that Bitcoin is using. So also proof of work. And it's a very innovative way of using blockchain technology, and it's very useful in having applications that actually have the same characteristics as Bitcoin has. On the other hand, I think also it's important to consider that these proof of work algorithms are actually built as a solution to a peer-to-peer cash system. So it's not, the architecture itself is not built to handle large-scale decentralized applications. And I think we have all seen that also in the last year. And proof of stake is a way to sort of move away from the energy costs that you have in proof of work and have a more efficient way of hosting decentralized application, but still it mimics the architecture of proof of work. So you still have sort of an architecture that is built upon serving the need for a decentralized peer-to-peer cash system, which is perfectly fine for certain use cases, of course, but if you are considering to build a large-scale decentralized applications with a lot of users, then it has some drawbacks. And that's where Neo comes into the picture. So Neo is not built to be a peer-to-peer cash system. It's actually built from the ground up to be a blockchain platform that you can deploy smart contracts on. You can build Turing-complete smart contracts, and you can actually build large-scale decentralized application with a large amount of users and a high amount of throughput, and where the consensus algorithm is built to ensure that the throughput is always increasing, so you don't get the conflict of interest where some parties want to limit the throughput and other parties want to increase it. So the thing with proof of work and proof of stake that makes it a little bit awkward when you're working with large-scale decentralized application is that it does branch during consensus. So you can have different blocks that can be the next block in the blockchain. So you have competing blocks. In proof of work, you have on hashing power, and on proof of stake, you have betting on the next block. So you have 2, 3, or 4 different blocks that can actually be part of the next, as the next block in the blockchain. So how many of you here have ever transferred a token to one, let's say one wallet to another wallet, or from one exchange to another exchange? That should be quite a lot of you, yeah, at least half of you. So then you know that you need to wait for a certain amount of confirmations before the transaction is actually complete. It can be 12 confirmations or 15 confirmations or even 30 confirmations. And the reason you have to wait is actually because of how proof of work and proof of stake are built up. So you have these possibilities of branching. So you need to wait a certain amount of blocks. One confirmation is that there is one block after your transaction. So you have to make sure that your transaction is part of the longest chain, because both proof of work and proof of stake, they are following the longest chain rule. And so far, so good. So Neo uses another consensus algorithm. It's called Delegated Byzantine Fault Tolerance, in short DBFT. So it works like you have a set of consensus nodes, which is, you can almost compare with the miners. They are the ones that are deciding on which transactions to be taken into the next block. The difference is that in Neo, there is no competition in creating the next block. So these nodes that are taking part as the consensus nodes, they will take turn. So there will be one of the nodes that are selected as the speaker. He will propose the next block. And the rest of the consensus nodes, they will follow the BFT algorithm to see if they can come to agreement on that block or not. And if you have studied computer science, you should be familiar with the BFT algorithm. So you have to reach more than 2/3 of the nodes have to agree with that proposed block. And if they do, then it will be signed, and it will be the next block in the blockchain. If they cannot reach 2/3 consensus on that block, then that proposed block will be denied, and one of the other consensus nodes will be selected instead to propose his version of the next block. And then they will see if they can reach 2/3 consensus, and it will just iterate until 2/3 consensus can be reached, which means that in the Neo blockchain, at any single point in time, there is always only one block being proposed as the next block. So what you get in Neo is no branch whatsoever. It can never branch during the consensus. So you have a really nice blockchain with just block after block after block and no branching. So the longest chain is Neo is just the only chain that exists, which means that after one confirmation, you have 100% finality. And that means that if you send, you can already try that when you're sending to exchanges or sending between 2 wallets. So after just the first confirmation, then the transaction is complete. So when you talk about transactions time, for example, usually when you see these infographics online about transaction time, people like to equal transaction time with block time, and then I just want to rip my hair off, but I don't have any hair, so it's a bit problematic. But in fact, when you're talking about transaction time, what you have is that you have the block time and you have the number of confirmations. So the actual transaction time is the block time multiplied by the number of confirmations that you need to have. So here in this example, if you have a block time of 15 seconds and you need 10 confirmation, then the actual transaction time is 150 seconds. Whereas on Neo, where you have finality in every single block, it cannot branch during the actual consensus. That means that the block time is actually the transaction time. So in Neo, you have the transaction time at 15 seconds. And in practice, it's now around 19, 20 seconds because of latency and iterations in the consensus. So why is this so important then? Well, you can imagine that if you have a very simple application, for example, you have the peer-to-peer cache system, then it doesn't matter too much that you need to wait a set amount of confirmations. But when you're working with more complex decentralized applications, and especially assets, tokens, and you have these applications that are supposed to interact with each other, you need to have exchange of these tokens. And you see, for example, right now, I think it started at the end of last year, and especially this year, there's a lot focused on decentralized exchanges. And there's a reason for that, because there's so many applications out there with their own tokens. And if you want interaction between different decentralized applications, you do need to swap tokens. And if you do it on proof of work and proof of stake, and you have to wait this amount of confirmations between every single swap, and you have a whole chain of smart contracts that should interact with each other, it's a quite painful and long process if you have to wait 150 seconds, for example. Whereas on Neo with the DBFT algorithm, you can actually have this chain of transactions and smart contracts that invoke each other quite fast because of this 100% finality in every single block. So it's a very, very good blockchain to use for these large-scale applications that do need to have this use case of decentralized exchange as well. And this is just another picture where you end up with, I think, at least my opinion is that we will end up with a situation with chain of chains. There will be chains for specific use cases. There will be consortium chains. There will be public chains. There will be private chains. And they will need to interact with each other. And here we have the same situation with proof of work and proof of stake. If you need to wait a certain number of confirmations before you can actually do this cross-chain interaction, then you still end up with this quite long procedure to actually achieve what you want to achieve. And each of these chains can have their own block times. So it can be a quite painful process. Whereas if it's a chain of chains of blockchains that are using this DBFT algorithm, then you have finality in every block. So you can actually move, let's see if I can show it here. So you can actually move here from this block to this block to this block to this block. Whereas in proof of work or proof of stake, you would actually start here. Maybe it's enough to have 5 confirmations. So from here, you can move to the next. And then you have to wait there and move to the next. So it's very useful. And especially for enterprises, Neo is a very good choice. If you already have a software development team, you would most likely have a software development team that is developing in, for example, .NET, C#, Java, JavaScript, Golang perhaps. And if you want to start developing applications for a blockchain, a decentralized application, you basically have two options. Either you have to teach all your software engineers on how to program in that particular programming language that you want to use, for example, Solidity, for example, Haskell. That's the first option. The second option is that you have to employ specific engineers just for these decentralized applications that you're trying to build. And I've been working as a software manager for quite a lot of years. And both of these options are very time-consuming, and they are very expensive. Whereas on Neo, we have actually built compilers, independent compilers for C#, Python, Java, Golang, JavaScript. So you can actually use these programming languages to develop your smart contracts on Neo. So if you have programmers who already know these languages, they can very easily get started to develop on top of Neo. Because we have these specific compilers to compile it into the AVM file, which is then deployed on the Neo blockchain. And the ecosystem is, of course, important. And Neo has his main chain launched since 2014, so it's a stable main chain. We had our smart contract 2.0 deployed in beginning of August last year. And this is just a few of the applications that are already building or completed on the Neo blockchain. There are more than this, many more than this, and some projects are quite keen on keeping their, so this page here is from projects that have chosen to make their project public. So there are also a lot of projects that are building on top of Neo and keeping it not public as for now to be able to have a product before they actually announce it. And I'd like to say a few words also about the monetizing. So when you're developing a product, if you ever had any problems with transaction fees, then you should also consider Neo, because transactions are free on Neo, invocations are free on Neo. So the fees are actually imposed upon the development company. So the smart contract fee is relatively expensive, but it's free for your users to invoke and send transactions. So if you have, for example, Neo token or gas token on an exchange, you will withdraw it. The exchange will not take any transaction fee because it doesn't cost anything to send transactions through Neo. And my time is running out, but for all the developers in here, I have 2-3 slides where you can take pictures with your phone just to get started on how to develop on top of Neo. So these are workshops in Python, C#, and Java, just to have to get started, to see how to set up the environment and build your first applications on top of Neo. So I'll give you an opportunity to take a picture here. You can also search on YouTube, and you will be able to find them. You can also email me later, and I can send the links to you as well. And here are links to actual examples, so complete applications, complete decentralized applications that are open sourced. So for developers, it's good to do a tutorial, it's good to do a workshop, but then when you're actually starting to building your application, you will stumble across problems, and then it's good to see how other people have developed their applications to get some ideas. So this is also a good source to learn more about the development on top of Neo. And here are also resources on how to get contact with the community. My email is here, so feel free if you have any questions, please just email me. I suggest that you follow the Neo Twitter, and I strongly suggest all the developers to join Discord. So you will also find the link to Discord on our website, neo.org. At the very bottom of the page, there's a link to Discord. And that's where all our developers are communicating. So we have different channels for each programming language. So if you're a C# developer, there is a C# channel there, where all the Neo C# developers are communicating with each other. And same for Python, the same for Java, the same for JavaScript. So all developers should really check this out. And anyone who is interested to join Neo, we are employing both for our community and for our office in Shanghai. So send an email to join@neo.org. And thank you for coming today. I will be here the whole day today. We have a booth outside, so if you have any questions, then just feel free to grab me out there. Thank you.